Well, praise the Lord and good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's live stream on being a man of influence. Again, we are truly excited to have this conversation, which is just a continuation from last week's discussion. Today, we are joined with Bishop Joseph Wilson, who will be our facilitator, speaker, presenter as during our Brotherhood Retreat, which starts tomorrow, May the 17th through the 19th. And we're truly honored to have him with us during this weekend. And Bishop Wilson, God bless you. Thank you for joining us again this week.
God bless you, Deacon Halliburton. It is great to be back again and share a little bit more. I'm excited about the weekend. And if God allows me to drive you all as crazy as He's been driving me, man, we're going to have some awesome experiences in the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Amen. And so today, again, this is more of a continuation from last week's conversation. We want to do just a really brief recap. We do encourage you to go back and watch the live stream from last week, as it does lay the foundation for what we're going to talk about today. Bishop Wilson, again, will we hope that we will have a more of a deeper dive on this topic during this retreat, especially on the Saturday session. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But in terms of a recap, we did lay the foundation on what influence is, defining influence, as well as understanding some of the qualities of influence. We did define influence as, the power to affect change in someone and how someone thinks and behaves. We coined, Bishop Wilson shared a quote from John Maxwell that said, "Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less." And so we understand that being a man of influence is and leading essentially is not determined by a title. You can lead from and influence from any position. We did talk about some of the qualities and life skills of leadership, such as listening, integrity, having faith in people, communication, just to name a few, as well as some of the ways to grow influence and how to grow those qualities of influence. And one particular, which he touched on last week, was really overcoming the barrier of valuing yourself, or being able to invest into yourself and growing in those areas. And then lastly, we touched on mentorship, which is again something that is essential in today's as we talk about man of influence, being able to and have mentors and being a mentee, and following somebody and allowing somebody to lead you, and because, as he said last week, mentors are people who go the way, they know the way, and they show the way, and they've been in realms and areas that you haven't been in, and they're able to equip you and help you and prepare you to the place that you're trying to get to. And so with that, today we're going to dive a little bit deeper, and we touched on this topic last week, Bishop, and towards the middle or the end of the conversation, and that was around the topic of being self-aware. And so felt like that was customary to really lay the foundation for this continuation today. And so if you could just take a few minutes as we talk about being a man of influence and being self-aware, could you define what self-awareness means to you?
Yes, self-awareness and probably the most healthy thing that helps me to really grab that is in the Maxwell law of awareness. It helps a person to do three things. One is to find fulfillment. And in finding fulfillment, you also eliminate confusion and frustration. Confusion comes into the picture of not really knowing what you want or who you really are. So it creates a level of confusion that disrupts fulfillment. And then the frustration sets in because we all have a no-do gap.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that we know that we don't do.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates that no-do gap that leads to a lot of frustration in our life at times when we need to experience fulfillment. So awareness about self becomes extremely powerful. And that's why I like to use tools of discovery.
Okay.
My wife and I do it in our co-authored book, Discover the Miracle in Your House, 10 Principles of a Breakthrough Life. And it helps you to lock into you to be your authentic self no matter what context you're in, whether you're at home, whether you're at church, whether you're at work, whether you're in the community, that I act like me, and I bring the best of me in those ways because I'm not wrestling with the confusion or the frustration. That I step forward fully into myself to the point now, when I look at my profile and what I do, they're in alignment. So therefore, I get the fulfillment of being what God put me on the planet for. That self awareness brings me to the place of making decisions about what I do and don't do, because you're not going to get the best of me if you just put me in a role. And a lot of times that happens in all of our arenas. They need somebody to fill a slot. And oftentimes, and having been a hiring manager and making those decisions,
Hmm.
if you put the wrong person in the seat, you don't get you don't get the production, and you get more frustration than you bargained for, because you'll find out that some people are good but maybe good for something else. So
That's good.
self-awareness helps you come to that place of making sure everything is in alignment so everybody can get the fulfillment that's needed.
Awesome. Can you share a moment when becoming more self-aware helped you become a better leader and a better make a leadership decision rather? Because I know you just touched on being a hiring manager, but can you give us an example of in your life where being self-aware helped you make a critical decision?
There's a couple, and I'll go back because of the generations that might be listening now or will lock into the replay later. I can remember going from high school to college and uh, feeling like I was carrying the expectations of my family to play football at a collegiate level, and see if it leads anywhere. And I quickly got to the place that I could not pay the price for their dream. I could only pay the price for my dream. And that's when I walked off the field, hung up the helmet, the pads, the cleats, and hadn't have no regrets because I couldn't pay the price for somebody else's dream. So that moment of self awareness that wasn't my dream, it got me to the next level, yes, but it was not what I dreamed about doing going forward. So therefore, I made a decision based upon what I needed to do for me. And at that young age, maybe for the first time in my life, that I made a me decision, being aware about me. But at a time also that I was desperately discovering me, because within my freshman year of college, I turned around my first business. I took over the campus advertisement agency from an upperclassman that was transitioning out. And I didn't have a clue about a clue. I didn't know a business from a business. But I did some things naturally that helped me to turn around the business, that helped me to make an impact. I managed employees, I managed budgets, I upgraded equipment, and did the scheduling and production things that you do in any management role. But I had not taken a business course at that point. So it was one of those self awareness of my natural abilities.
Hmm.
And now, in hindsight, looking at my dominant spiritual gift is leadership. My personality style is more decisive, directing, demanding, determined. And you put those together in leadership, it's why I've never held a job either in a spiritual context or a business context that I didn't wind up in a leadership role because of those awareness. And oftentimes I had to enter an environment from an entry level position. One was I was moving from a retail management environment into a wholesale and manufacturing sales environment. And the position I applied for, I did not get. They hired someone else. And then, in order to get in the environment, I took even a lesser role than that starting place. Coming from a management role and a significant management role to a sales role was a big shift. But I wasn't afraid to start there because I knew by that time, no matter where I start, I rise.
Hmm.
It was natural to me to do that because of how I'm wired. And being self-aware in that way, I quickly went from an entry level position to being the boss of the person that they hired before me.
Mm.
So that kind of shaped me and how I grew, and not being afraid to start over, not being able to try think new things and in new ways because of that self awareness. Hopefully, that's getting at some of what you're asking.
Yeah, absolutely. And my mind went back to when I was in college. I played baseball from like the age of 6 all the way up until like my first year in college, and I had an opportunity where I had an opportunity to go to Disney World to do their internship program, and they came to the campus and interviewed, and I guess I had rocked the interview pretty well, and then they had invited me back to actually to go down to Florida to be in that program, and I had played baseball for so long, and I was one of those times where I had to really think, okay, am I playing it because of, because it's just something I've done, or is this really who I am? And I realized that first year of college that baseball on the collegiate level is nothing. I mean, it's completely different. Sports on the collegiate level, and I don't think I didn't have what was needed to continue that on, and my passion wasn't there for that. But if I had stayed where I was and I didn't go to that internship, I probably wouldn't have been where I am, because that one internship opened so many doors for me. It helped me develop in so many different areas that I didn't know that I had. And so just being taking a risk on myself, and I do consider that an investment, but it was a risk because it wasn't something that I was used to doing, but it
Okay.
opened a lot of doors for me. And so um, in terms of, you talked about your acceleration in your career, and how you came in at an entry level, and you ended up in pretty much all cases ended up being a leader in those roles. So how does understanding your strengths and weaknesses enhance your leadership abilities as a leader?
It really, especially in today's uh, workplace, it's more team oriented than it's ever been. And when you have that self awareness, it helps you to know what strengths that you bring to the team.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, there's a good book, "The Self Aware Leader" by John Maxwell. It talks about playing to your strengths, and then you revolutionize your team and maximize their potential and abilities. And one of the other tools that helps me to get a bigger picture of me, and how it helps me to step forward in my strengths, is I'm only strong at what I'm strong at.
Mhm.
And I was talking to my executive leadership in my nonprofit organization that I lead, and I was helping them understand in terms of being a futurist, a visionary leader, a pioneer. I can look down the road and figure out where we're going relative to where we are and what we need to do to get there. I can be very strategic in my approach, be very influential, very good at ideation and activation. But in terms of building the kinds of relationships that good team builders do, uh, I don't seem to have those kinds of abilities. So I would need somebody on the team, the partner in that area, as well as in the areas of execution. I'm stronger at the what, and I have, because of my ability to do design thinking. I'm good at ideation and I can put things on the table, but I can't always execute what I put on the table. I can't always make it come alive like somebody else could make it come alive. And those things of self awareness says, here's how I build a team based on my strengths. Or if I'm working in a team environment, then I'm going to bring visionary thinking, strategic planning to the team, but I might not be the one to execute all of it or to carry it through to the end. Even as a church planter, I got to the point where I got to the end of me and my capacity. So I merged two churches and turned the church over to another pastor
Hmm.
because they deserved they deserved a good pastor. And at that point, I couldn't be what was next for them, but I wasn't going to withhold next from them. So those are some key ways in which I think about my own self-awareness and then how it relates to other people.
Now, do you think it's worth investing into your weaknesses as a leader, or do you say just focus more on the strengths and then build based on where you need to come up at? And
That's a fantastic question, and a lot of people ask that question. And the rule across the board and across industries is why invest in getting a little bit better than bad at something by working on your weaknesses?
understood.
It's a total investment in what you're strong at and what you're good at and getting better at it, because the rule is, from a leadership perspective, you always staff your weaknesses.
Gotcha.
Because you can spend a lifetime trying to get a little bit better and you're still bad at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so and that's something that I've thought about here recently. And, I love one of my things that I enjoy. I love being a part of a team. And I didn't like it so much growing up because I didn't like group projects. That was something I didn't enjoy. And
Okay.
I would always take a back seat in group projects. But here recently, and I think it's because some of the roles that I have been kind of thrust into force you to develop and adapt. And so, with that being said, in terms of being, let's talk a little bit about building relationships as a leader. So, in what ways has self awareness helped you build stronger relationships with your team? Because you talked about building teams and you staffing based on weaknesses, but how have they helped you to build stronger relationships?
And that another great question. Uh, Being aware of uh, my dominance, and the ability to fill the space sometimes can be good at times, especially in crises. That I can step forward in a crisis and quickly come up with solutions and solve problems and activate the environment to move in a direction. But then there are times that can be a negative when you try to push people beyond where they're ready to go. So in that sense, it becomes a negative when you're trying to push people beyond their readiness, which is why I like the diversity of my leadership education and training in different modules and styles. One of the things that I've had the privilege of learning in behavioral theories of management in my formal education, but also having had the ability to travel to San Diego to the Blanchard Company headquarters and learn about situational leadership, which is a model that teaches leadership flexibility, but driven by follower development. And it's so powerful because you match the style of leadership to the development level of the person that you're working with. And when I use that and go from that lens, it helps me to balance me a little bit, because when you look at instruments such as DISC for self-awareness, which is a personality profile that's widely used across industries now, even in the faith arena. It helps you to look at you from two different lenses. One is we all wear masks, not just because of the pandemic,
Hmm.
but we wear masks because we respond to things that are thrust upon us that we feel like this is what is expected of me. So I put the mask on and I behave according to what's expected of me. And then we get to our authentic self when we're under pressure or at home and in an environment where we're totally relaxed and being ourselves.
Hmm.
Then the real us comes out. And sometimes it is different than, or things that get suppressed when we're playing the role that never comes to the surface. So with that, I sometimes have to back off being self-aware to allow other people to step up because I can fill the space, and have many years of doing that, and many different ways and industries for top leadership as well as the individual that's just trying to get started.
Awesome. And so you touched on something that we had a conversation here a little bit before the live, and that's the DISC assessment. And so I want to dive into that if we can, if that's okay with
Sure.
you, to talk a little bit about it. For those who don't know what that is, do you mind just letting people on this live stream, let them know what is a DISC assessment and how does it help somebody?
That's a good way to dive into it to really understand it. First and foremost, it is a tool of maximizing people's self-awareness and productivity across industries, but it really comes from antiquity and understanding the healthy emotions of people. Marston was the pioneer in that particular area, a early psychologist that really wanted to look at the healthy emotions and behaviors of people, and then how does it impact a person's performance and behavior in normal settings. And it morphed into what's now, in my opinion, is probably one of the most simplified and powerful tools in the marketplace today, and that's DISC. And DISC is a way of looking at how people are different but predictably different. And it follows if you can imagine a pie chart, you have a D and an I and an S and a C as a part of that DISC profile. Your D's are your decisive, determined, dominant uh, uh, people. You have your I's, your influencing, inducing, inspiring people. You have your S's, your stable, steady, security oriented people. And you have your C's, which are your competent, calculating, cautious type, very analytical in their approach. And when you find in any environment, you need all of those types. It's not a good, bad, better, or best. It's more of finding out how am I wired, and then how does that either make me the same as someone that I'm working with or different than someone that I'm working with. But it becomes explainable behavior, whether it's the same or different. And usually in a conversation, I'll hear people's language, and I can pretty much with accuracy at this point, being a licensed leader in that environment, I certify consultants to deliver the instrument, interpret the instrument. So I use it a lot. I use it in business. I use it in ministry, and even in this context, we've ventured. You've done it in the past, but we have a new instrument that combines both personality, which I call the natural gifting, with a spiritual gifting, and I call that together a God DNA, because it takes natural and spiritual gifting and wiring and gives you a complete picture of what God said in our birth. in natural birth, spiritual birth. He made deposits that gives us clues about what he's doing, intending to do, and want to do in and through our lives, which gives us a level of God awareness in our self-awareness, so we don't resist him. We're going to get into some of that on tomorrow night's session at the retreat, to really look at a biblical character that had to get rid of some barriers to blessings to really step into the purpose and the power that God had for him as a man of influence. He was a man of influence, but he had some barriers that disrupted and potentially could have derailed his whole influence. So we're going to spend a weekend doing that with different biblical characters. It's bringing my Masters of Organizational Leadership Studies with a biblical worldview into play, where you can merge the two worlds, but come out with good functional ways that you can live meaningfully and purposefully.
Awesome, awesome. Do you mind sharing where you fall on the in the disc assessment? What's your two main areas?
I guess I could ask you to guess, but that's a little bit risky. I did that in the Dominican Republic in a leadership session, and they were all over the map.
Wow.
But yes, I'm a DIC, strong D, strong I, and a little c. And I'm convinced that C, in 41 years of marriage to a CS, that C rubbed off. It's not natural. It rubbed off. But those are my dominants.
Awesome.
When I'm doing what I'm expected, I'm almost all D. Just driving to the mission, completing the mission, taking care of business with blinders on. But there's this influencing side that activates the environment, that activates other gifts and other types in the environment, that helps people to find their place and significance. And when I look back, that probably really started to surface as a high school football team captain of a championship team. I was all conference at my position, but probably more than position play, I added leadership and the ability to infect the environment of the team and its performance more than I did in position play.
So now you did touch on something in terms of significance, and this may go into another question that we can talk about in terms of legacy. Um, Now, I don't think not everybody may fully be aware of wanting to leave a legacy. I think there's something in us inherently that wants to leave a significant impact in something. We want to be known for something. We want to contribute to something. And
Yes.
so, how has self awareness influenced the legacy you aim to leave in whether in ministry or professional life?
It has influenced significantly in what I do, and more importantly in the season that I've been growing into for a while now. And let me back up for a moment. Human development goes through different phases, and there was a time that one of the greatest fears of humanity was death.
Hmm.
And now death and murder is our entertainment on television. So there's no
Mhm.
longer this fear of death.
Mhm.
But what people feel more now is that having lived and dying and having not done anything significant. So it drives people to do things, in some cases unethically,
Yeah.
to try to appear to be something they're not. I worked with a company president that asked me to evaluate something that he was considering because of my experience in the nonprofit arena. But he made it very clear in evaluating this request for a donation to feed the hungry. I really don't care whether people eat or not. I just want to be perceived as somebody that cares.
Mm.
And a lot of people operate from that vein, that they don't have they have real significance. They'll take false significance. So they'll buy significance,
Mhm.
or they'll leave money to get their name put on a building, which is not wrong in and of itself. And then the storm comes by and knock the building down, and they can't rebuild it with the person's name on it anymore.
Yeah.
So if you put significance and legacy in buildings, eventually you lose, because those are things that erode. But real legacy is in people.
Mhm.
And as you invest in people, my wife and I are in what I would call a kingdompreneur season. We created a nonprofit as well as a for-profit corporation centered around empowering people in places of worship and work. And it's all honoring our God DNA, but this sense that I've carried since a 5-year old, that my life is about making a difference. And when I train people, when I coach people, when I mentor people, when I help people to become self aware, when I activate organizations and systems, it's all about making a difference, because I'm honoring the 5-year old's dream. I'm honoring why I'm on the planet. And then when I look at who I am and how I make that difference, it gives me that place of being significant in the lives of people. I was just talking with an individual earlier today that has gone through some self awareness sessions with me and coaching and some training with me to grow in their influence. And the things that they're doing now help me realize that I've done something significant. I've made a difference in somebody else's life, and the real legacy comes in what's called the law of reproduction, that we reproduce after our own kind.
Mhm.
That I made somebody proficient in ways that I'm proficient. That not all in the same way, but I passed on that DNA that's in me to make a difference in somebody else's life, so they can do it in their own uniqueness, but they're doing what's strong in me. In that sense. And so in the law of reproduction and producing after your own kind, it leads to significance and legacy. If you go back to the very beginning of creation, it started with Adam and Eve with the command to be fruitful and multiply,
Mhm.
is to reproduce someone like you. And as you reproduce in a natural sense of children, you're reproducing yourself in a figurative sense of using my skills, capacities, positions, organizations, and roles, and do that, then I'm still multiplying myself. And that's when we get into being a man of influence, and in this post event move of the 1,000 men of influence. We talked briefly about the 4 M's of becoming a person of influence by John Maxwell and Jim Dornan. That the 3 M's helps you to learn how to model things for people. And John Maxwell says 89% of all that people learn comes from modeling. They see somebody else do it, and then it sticks and passes on. And then you have the motivation factor of doing things that motivates people to engage and become influential in their environment, that leads to mentoring, and then ultimately multiplying, where you get to legacy phase, is that you reproduce yourself in other people. When you think about it from this point, um, Paul had a great transformation in his life. He tried to go to the established church leadership on his own, and they threw him out.
Hmm.
Barnabas took him back into the same room with the same people and told his story for him and validated for him, and then they embraced him.
Hmm.
So Barnabas got to be Paul's first mentor. he recruited Paul into Barnabas' pastoral assignment in Antioch to give him a place to develop into who he was going to become, the apostle to the Gentiles. He was called to it, he just wasn't ready to do it. So the year he spent in Antioch with Barnabas, getting mentored and working in a team environment with other leaders, because it said they sent prophets and teachers from the Jerusalem headquarters church to support Barnabas as the new pastor of Antioch, uh, for the first time pastoring Gentile believers. Paul was actually recruited in that environment because of his leadership and capacities to one, he's called to that area, but he also had extreme intelligence and the ability to impact people. So when you bring all of that together, it helps you to now lead into an environment where you are significantly reproducing and multiplying yourself. That becomes a part of your legacy, what you become known for. What and the misnomer of the times is I get into legacy, age, and stage. And having done none of these things my whole life, all of a sudden I'm going to do a few gimmicks of things, and then I'm going to leave a legacy because of that gimmick or that slogan or that phrase that I use in the period where I'm really done, but I'm in legacy season. No, legacy is what you do your whole life authentically. That's why self-awareness is so powerful, to the whole development process, but also to leaving a legacy, because it's what marks your life, not your moment of legacy season. It,
So,
hopefully that's making sense.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's all great stuff. And um, so, in terms of self awareness, and for those who are just joining, the number will look like we do have a little bit more uh, viewers here today. If you can, we do want to open it up for some questions at some point in this live stream. So if you have any questions, any comments, we do encourage you to put those in the chat for us. But Bishop, and I think we're doing pretty good on time today. Let's talk a little bit about the DNA profile that you were mentioning earlier.
Yes.
Um, I had the privilege of doing this recently, and it was an eye opener for me. I had taken more of the corporate side of it, and now I had the opportunity to do it from another perspective of more of the spiritual and the spiritual gifts and things like that. And so I want you to, can you break that down for us? Because that is something that we're hoping that may be impact for somebody that's looking to really discover. Maybe they do know what their gifts are. Maybe they just need something that kind of shed light on a few things. But could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, yes, yes. And what I've coined out of that profile is the whole God DNA concept, because it really captures the totality of the person, your natural and spiritual giftedness and wiring. That also helps you to understand that there are no ungifted people. We've been socialized for much too long in school
Mhm.
that you had people that do well in school, they're called gifted. If you don't do well in school, you're something else, and usually doesn't have very defined label. But really, there are no ungifted people, because all of us have a piece of our Creator in our naturalness, that's called personality. But when you looked at it from giftedness, that my drivenness and determination has allowed me to climb out of my own pit, because at 5 years of age, I watched my younger sister die in my mother's arms. My dad disappeared. My mom I had never known from that point forward without mental illness. So I was raised by a single mother with mental illness, and I took on a lot of responsibility very young. So I had to lock into, and it started pulling out of me that natural giftedness, that natural drivenness, and standing up to the Goliaths at a very young age, at that point, because of economic circumstances, neighborhood circumstances. being, having a mother that was drop dead gorgeous with sisters that were drop dead gorgeous. And it brought a whole lot of pressure on me to grow up and grow up fast.
Mm.
So having those things in me, life started pulling out of me very, very young to make those discoveries that made me me and kept me growing as me. To the point that by the time I was a high school football player and my senior year, I was running the spring conditioning program because I was well developed beyond my age by that time. But it was pulling things that were in me out of me. So God gave me some things to work with despite my nightmare. My dream quickly became my nightmare for a long, much too long as a young person. But I had something to work with to navigate those things. So in that whole profile, it helped me to grow as me and grow into the areas that really marked my life. My first probably formal leadership role was I became the troop leader of my Boy Scout troop at 13.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of actual formal leadership roles at 13, because what was in me kept getting pulled out of me, and that rise to the top, no matter where I start, was activated because of situations in life. And that's what happens even in a spiritual arena. And if I was doing what I do in the Power Pack Church Power Conference, which is a conference that helps you to align and assign the anointed to make sure that a person's natural and spiritual wiring match their assignment. And what we were doing with you and discovering and understanding your God DNA, we both had the same reaction. We looked at what it said for best fits for you is tailor made to what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
Although you had a little bit of trepidation about whether this is for me and whether I can step into that or not, or how am I going to do with this, it was spot on.
Mm-hmm.
That helps a person when you get that kind of spot on information. Then I can step forward with a lot more confidence and assurance. I can keep growing as me in these arenas because influence doesn't stay stagnant. It grows with us, and it grows from level to level, whether you're the formal leader or not the formal leader. In some cases, I was running operations, not the formal leader. I was influencing the environment and the behavior of other people, because in understanding my profile, it's not uncomfortable for me to step into a dominant place because that's how I'm wired.
Mm-hmm.
It's not uncomfortable for me to lead because that's my dominant spiritual gift. The ancillary that couples with leadership, the self-awareness tells me what kind of leadership will I succeed best at? Because almost 40 years ago, the Arizona Bureau of Employment Services did a survey on me for employment purposes and said that I probably would not find much fulfillment in being a minister. 41 years in ministry now, I understand what they were saying, because what they were talking about is the traditional mindset of what a minister is a local or parish pastor. I'm a pioneering pastor. I'm an apostolic pioneering leader that can go into nothing, dream into it, take the nothing and create something out of the nothing.
Wow.
Those are my strengths and hallmarks as a leader. And then taking something that should be shut down and turning it around are fortes of mine. I did it in ministry. I did in business. One system that I rose the ranks in management is I became the turnaround specialist in that environment. But I started at a point of lacking self awareness. And interestingly, a customer helped me become self aware. They came into my operation, they observed my behavior, and they asked me, was I the boss? I said, no, and neither do I want to be the boss here. But the question bothered me, and I caught them before they left and asked them, you asked me the question, was I the boss? Why did you ask me that? He said, I was observing your demeanor and the way you were interacting with the other employees. I just assumed you were the boss.
Mm.
But that self awareness and that call to self awareness moment helped me to lock into who I was. And within 6 months, I was in the management training program and turning around operations that they wanted to close. They gave me 90 to 120 days to try to turn it around before they closed it, but they never had to close any place because I was able to do the best me and create turnaround. So that self-awareness on both sides of the fence become very, very important to aligning yourself with your best work. That you get the fulfillment and you're not dealing with confusion or frustration. Because frustrated people frustrate people.
Yeah.
And sadly enough, there's a lot of frustrated people in church because they were put in places because they need somebody and they got a body to fill the space. And it's hard to get people out of places that you put them in,
Wow.
even though they know they're not right for it or doing a good job. So we got to get better going forward in today's kingdom environment and a post-pandemic church is getting people aligned with their anointings, their strengths, their gifts, which means that we got to create a lot of self-awareness.
So now, if somebody wanted to take that, well, let me start here. I think I can't. I don't want to tell people what those opportunity areas were because I think there's people that know me and they probably would agree with some of the things that I would share. So I'm not going to feed into that. So we're going to move on.
Okay.
But I think for me it was very much spot on, especially the particular gifts that were referenced. The main one was really a kind of a surprise for me. Um, and I'll just share that one, which was giving. It was giving, teaching, and exhorting. And so those were the three that came up for me. And I was a little surprised about the giving, but looking back, it's I can see how that's definitely something that has been a part of me, especially in my wife. You know, we believe in sacrificial giving. It's not something that's difficult for us. We don't. Now, depending on what God will say, yes, we might have to hold our chest a little bit, or
Sure.
but if it doesn't hurt, then it may not be big enough, you know. But
Sure.
we that's just part of who we are, you know. We that's what we don't mind doing that. And it talked about in finance or planning committees, and I it's
Mm,
something that I do. I like being a part of something planning because I don't like when things are they don't have somebody to a team or a person leading something because it really irritates me. So that's something that I like being part of that planning of, okay, how do we structure this thing to get where we need to go? And I found
mhm.
that was interesting. It kind of read me a little bit. Some of it wasn't, I think it's not 100%, but it still
Right.
read me pretty well. So,
Yeah,
um,
and I think that's important to know where some of the stuff comes from. Just
mm,
like when I look at your gifts profile and put the mentorship lens on, it gives you that profile gives you your dominant three.
mm,
But when I look at the strengths of two different areas, I would say that those need to be entered into your top profile, even though in their classic sense they didn't make it, and that was leadership and administration and ruling,
mm,
and both of those correlate together because it becomes a way of expecting that I can step into an environment and very comfortably lead an environment, and you do it naturally from competence, and but knowing, and even when you talked about that being a part of the planning process, those also come from that leadership and administration strengths. But they're strong enough to pay attention on your profile, even though they don't make the top three, because we all sometimes have those ancillary areas that gives us a different platform or some diversity in our platform, that we can serve in different ways depending on the circumstance.
Awesome. Awesome. Well said. And I appreciate that. And just looking at the comments here, we do have a question. We do have a few more minutes here. The question is, can you distinguish between assertion versus aggression?
Yes, yes. Aggression is when a person is single-mindedly focused on what they want to the exclusion of all others, and they don't really concern themselves how their behavior impact another person. They only want and after what matters to them. Assertion takes into account I'm driving and striving for what's important for me, but I have the capacity to consider how my behavior impacts you in the process of doing it. Again, it becomes another one of those self-aware moments in assertion versus aggression, because you're very tunnel vision and only self-focused and driven. But in assertion, you're very aware of your environment and other people that might also have pursuits in the environment and things that are important to them. So you don't just run over people like somebody just flat out aggressive. You're still going after what you're going after, but you make room for other people and you consider the pursuits and feelings of other people in assertion.
Well said. Well said. Well, let's transition here. So we talked about the platform to identify one's strengths, weaknesses, spiritual gifts, and even opportunities where they would be a good fit. So I know you do have a program. So did you want to touch on that a little bit so we could share it with our audience here?
Yeah, yes. I am uh, a licensed master facilitator with Uniquely You, and we offer many different types of profiles, from a spiritual and a non-faith base, and also as an executive program leader with the Maxwell Leadership Certified team. I also offer a workplace disc profile in many different platforms. It impacts a general growth impact report. I can help you to look at, if you're in the sales arena, your strength in sales, or an entrepreneur. Look at your communication style and platform. Help you look at your executive team profile. So if you want to know how do your team behaves under pressure, can help you in those arenas. And what you need to do is reach out to me any from my social media platforms, IM me, or email me, joseph@powertobecomellc.com. And that's the number 2 in Power to Become. You can go to my Maxwell Leadership website, and that's johncmaxwellgroup.com/Joseph Wilson, and find me there. Or you can go to power2become.com and find me there. And just reach out to me, and we can get you in contact with those resources that can help you understand whether it's from a faith perspective or professional perspective. Both are very real and viable. And actually, one of the initiatives, things that we're doing this weekend is we're launching from this brotherhood retreat with original Glorious Church, and Deacon Halliburton, the Thousand Men of Influence Initiative. And for those that are on the call tonight, and I'm not sure whether you still have that slide or not, where you can put it up. You can scan the QR code and sign up. And if you sign up for this 5-week mastermind, becoming a person of influence, where we're empowering 1,000 men of influence, and if you become a part of that, then the first 10 people that sign up, what I will do as a bonus will give you the option of getting that God DNA profile. And if you don't want the full natural spiritual gifting, we can just do the natural personality profile. So if you want to do that, and looks like they put in the also in the comment section the link where you can also click the link, as well as do scan the QR code. If you sign up tonight, then I will give as a bonus for the first 10 that sign up for the 5-week mastermind, that profile. And then for those that will be signing up during the weekend with me, the first 10 that sign up during the weekend retreat, then you can have the choice of the DNA profile, God DNA profile, or the book, Becoming a Person of Influence. So there's 2 different bonuses. For those that are on the line tonight that will not be a part of the conference, and you want to be a part of the mastermind training that starts on Saturday, June 1st, and runs every Saturday through the month of June, so ending on June 29th. And we will engage for 1 hour and then another half hour of Q&A and interaction time together. So be a part of the weekend with us, or the 1,000 Men of Influence, which launches starting tomorrow night. It is a post-event thing. We're doing something powerful in partnership. Deacon Halliburton and I, we're tired of the one and done, and there's nothing beyond the event, but wait until next year. It's going to be bigger and better, but we're being proactive. We're saying, let's start a movement and bring together, which says by this time next year, we're planning an event for 1,000 Men of Influence, rather than just a brotherhood retreat. We're planning for a conference to house 1,000 Men of Influence, because we're intentional. So be a part of the journey with us. Looks like somebody says, can women get the DNA profile? Absolutely, you can. We want you to have that information as well. So lock in. If you're going to be a part of the retreat, be one of the first 10 to sign up for the 1,000 Men of Influence. And then you have the choice of that God DNA profile, or Becoming a Person of Influence book. So it's going to be a powerful and exciting retreat. Looking forward to engaging the men of OGC and the surrounding areas. Anybody that in the Columbus area or can get to the Columbus area this weekend, we want you to be there with us. God is going to drop some powerful word on us and content across ages and stages. And then join Deacon Halliburton, which will be leading the charge, because he's stepping into a place as a brotherhood president and leader of men of all ages and stages, an initiative of those that are experiencing fatherlessness to be fathered by God and learn from age to stage things that help you to lock into God and grow in grace. So a lot of things during the event, but it doesn't end at the event. We're building a path to organizing this time next year 1,000 Men of Influence, and I want you to be a part of that.
Awesome. Well said. Well said. I don't have to say anything else after that. He's brought up the mastermind, which again, I think for me, the big thing is, we talked about this a little bit, we don't want to be event focused. We want some momentum in between, these mass gatherings, because things can easily fizzle out in between there. So what things are we going to do that are actionable and progressive to get us to where, not only where God wants us to be, what can we do within our communities? What can we do that's actionable in between these events? Because these events essentially are to be recharging us, refreshing us, revitalizing us, but we need to do some work in between there. But we can't do it alone. We want to build momentum. 1,000 men, 50 men, 100 men. Hey, women, we need women too. So it's not men centric focus, but the 1,000 men of influence has men in it. So I would assume that it's it's for men, but we're opening it up to whoever will. And I, we appreciate Bishop Wilson for sharing this information with us on tonight. And as always, we do want to honor our pastor, my pastor, Bishop Dr. Benita Wright. We thank God for her, the woman of God over the church of our ministry, and for allowing us to even share this information with you. Again, we are excited for this retreat that starts tomorrow at the Original Glorious Church at 7 p.m. So we will be on time as much as we can. We believe in being on time. So please, whether you are virtual or if you can join us in person, we encourage you just to be a part of it with us. And again, pray for us. We really want God to do something in this meeting, in this retreat. We do want men touched, but we want anybody that will, any souls that need saved, deliverance, healing. This is the place to do it. So again, please share the information that you see. Again, God bless you, Bishop Wilson. Thank you so much for joining us on this evening, and we're truly excited to have you in Columbus, Ohio, starting tomorrow. And did you have any final remarks or anything you'd like to say before we go?
No, just be there with us, because God is going to release some powerful things starting tomorrow night. We're going to remove some barriers that's going to really set some people free. We're going to lock into mentoring for success on Saturday and have some hands-on practicum stuff, so we get the power of the information, not just the information. And then on Sunday morning, it is going to rain in the house.
Amen.
So looking forward to being there with you and engaging.
All right. Well, thank God for you. Thank God for everybody who joined us on this live stream tonight. And without further ado, God bless you. Thank you for joining us. And God bless. Have a good one.